Hello, everybody. So my name is Charles Porch. Obviously, I'm not Elliot, but my role at Facebook is on the community relations team. And in that role, I help nonprofits as well as public figures to be as successful as possible on our platform. So essentially, I'm a giant nerd that sits around and thinks about Facebook best practices all day, looks at analytics, and thinks about cool new ideas that we can execute all the time. And I'm really excited to be here with another Charles. We were talking before this. It's rare that you have a double Charles situation like this. So I think on email, this was unofficially dubbed the Charles Show. So I think we're going to roll with that. We might be onto something.
All right.
So I'll let you kick off because I think you should definitely give, obviously, for those who don't know about DonorsChoose, what the pitch is and what the 411 is and what you guys do.
For sure. So just real quick, I was a history teacher up in the Bronx for 5 years, and during my first year of teaching, my colleagues and I would talk all the time about books that we wanted our students to read, and a field trip that we wanted to take them on, and art supplies that we needed for an art project. We'd spend a lot of our own money on copy paper and pencils and really basic stuff, but the ideas we had for projects that could bring the subject matter to life never went beyond the teacher's lunchroom. And I figured that there were people out there who wanted to support public school classrooms, but were getting more and more skeptical about writing a $100 check to a big institution and feeling like their gift was going off into a black hole. So with the help of my students, we created this website where public school teachers can post classroom project requests. They range from a reading rug to a microscope to do a biology experiment to therapeutic horseback riding for disabled students. And then donors can come to the site and do a search for the projects that speak to them most personally, pick the one they like, donate as little as $1, and then expect to get photographs and thank you letters from the classroom whose project they chose to support. So that's how we began. That's the model. I'll mention a couple stats. Half of all the public schools in America have at least one teacher who's posted a project request on our site. It's about 200,000 teachers who've posted 300,000 classroom project requests and more than $100 million of donations to those projects from about 600,000 citizen philanthropists. And that's our word for our donors, because on our site, somebody with $10 can really be a philanthropist. They can get the level of choice as to which project they want to support, which project speaks to them most personally. They can get the kind of transparency into how each dollar was spent. They can get the kind of vivid feedback from the recipients that until not long ago was reserved for millionaire benefactors. So that's our story.
So you guys are basically a dream case study for us, because when we think about the title of this session, so building a cause from a social perspective, I think so often we see a cause that bolts their social strategy onto the side, which I think often makes it less successful. But I think there's something inherently social in the approach you guys have taken, and I know that's reached really big rewards for you all on Facebook. So maybe you can talk a little bit about that, because it's a really good story.
For sure. Well, I'll mention how we've made our organization social in its DNA, and then a couple things we do with Facebook, and then I want to turn it back to you, Charles, in terms of what you're seeing other nonprofits doing with Facebook. So I'd say that DonorsChoose.org is inherently social in that we do everything we can to make sure that the donor feels like they didn't simply transact a donation, but that they forged a relationship with a classroom on the other side of the tracks. Just in the checkout flow itself, not only do we invite the donor to express their personal passion, and with 25,000 classroom project requests live on our site, posted by the most imaginative teachers in low-income communities, you can do a keyword search for your favorite author and find teachers' projects requesting class sets of books written by your favorite author. Do a search for the sport you played in high school, the hobby that you're pursuing, the town where you grew up, and there'll be classroom projects matching your personal passion. And when you pick that project you're going to support, during the checkout flow, after you've entered your credit card info, we ask you to write a message to the classroom telling them why you picked their project. 87% of our donors stick around. They can see that we've consummated the donation, that their credit card's been hit. 87% of them stick around, even though they could exit out of the window, because they want to forge that relationship. They want to write a message to the classroom saying, hey, I picked your watercolor painting project because my grandfather was a watercolor painter and I wanted to honor him with this donation. Have fun with those watercolor paints. Can't wait to hear how it goes. And when and the teacher can message right back to the donor outside of the standard feedback process that we have. And speaking of that standard feedback process, when we send the donor photographs of their project in action, or the initial thank you note from the teacher, or the impact letter from the teacher, our first call to action is not, will you please open up your wallet again and donate? Our first call to action is to ask the donor to tell the classroom what they think of the photos they're now looking at of the project in action. It's to reply to the teacher's thank you note and write back with what you as the donor are feeling now that you're seeing this project come to life. So, and even when you get the student thank you letters in the mail, our first call to action is go back to the site and tell the class what you think of their letters. And the interactions that you see, and those interactions are public. You see the messages back and forth on the public classroom project page, and some of the interactions would bring tears to your eyes. So that's what we do to make our site social in its genes. We've done some stuff with Facebook that is bearing incredible fruit. Last school year alone, we got $1.9 million of donations from people who were simply clicking through Facebook status updates that were generated by our Facebook integration. One thing we do, it probably wouldn't surprise you, when a donor supports a classroom project, we encourage them to tell their friends about that project that they picked, since it's so often reflective of their personality and their background. Of course, we ask the teacher to share the photographs of their project in action with their friends on Facebook. But the majority of the $1.9 million we got just last school year from click-throughs on Facebook updates were not from donor-initiated updates. They were from teacher-initiated updates. When a teacher registers at DonorsChoose.org, we ask them permission. We ask them for a one-time handshake, which authorizes us to publish updates about their classroom projects on their behalf. And these updates are designed not to be ASCII or aggressive or embarrassing to the teacher. They're substantive updates saying, hey, I just posted a project for a reading rug, or hey, can you believe it? A donor in Nebraska just partially funded my project, or here are the photographs of my latest project in action. Substantive updates, although we might publish as many as 10 updates for one project. And the majority of that $1.9 million in donations is actually from teacher-initiated Facebook status updates that people click through. And I think the broader lesson here is that there may be even more power in enabling the beneficiaries of an organization to share what they've received via Facebook than in encouraging donors to let their friends know about what they've done. Obviously, you want to do both, but I think what's new for us is the special power in having a Facebook Connect integration for your beneficiaries as well as your donors. And with that, I want to ask what other nonprofits are doing with Facebook.
No, absolutely, and I'll add on to that, because I think this is so interesting, because I go to a lot of nonprofit conventions, and people always want the secret sauce, and you have everything from tiny organizations with 2 people to really large organizations, and the ones who are most successful are the ones that have a voice and that lead with people. So I often think, people aren't on Facebook necessarily to connect with a property. I mean, obviously they're connecting with these properties, but they want to have a social experience, and they want to connect with the people behind those properties. And I think leading with people and with the teachers in this case is so much more powerful and helps spread the word. And then what we're seeing is we'll often be the #1 or 2 referral source to someone's website, especially to a cause's website, when it comes to these kind of things. So in terms of some of the great things we're seeing, and I have to lead with this because it's November, and I don't know if anyone here is familiar with Movember. If you ever have the chance to sit down with these guys, I highly recommend it. They're from Australia. It's a group of guys that decided that they wanted a new way to raise money for men's health. And they went to all the traditional organizations and said, we want people to grow mustaches for a month and have their friends and family sponsor them for the whole month of November. Can we do this? And they said, that's a little out of the box for us, but I will take your money. So that's what they've done. And when you think about it, people often call Facebook a photo economy. We're the largest photo sharing website in the world. And what is more social than someone documenting the growth of their mustache on Facebook and sharing it with their friends? And the fascinating thing we saw, and it's very similar to what you did, is we became the #1 referral source to their website. And just to show you the scale of what something like Movember has achieved is last year in 2010, they were only in 6 countries, and they raised $68 million in 6 countries. And 12% of the donations came from Facebook referrals, which is really interesting. So, if you have something like that's inherently social, I think that's a really good way to go. Also, other interesting fact: women are their #1 donor base. I think they're just thrilled that they can get those shaved off at the end of the campaign. But I know we also have a lot of brands in the room and a lot of people that have a lot of social capital. And this is the other interesting thing that I've been really interested in, is a lot of the most interesting things we've seen coming from brands. And one of my favorite recent examples is Chase. So I don't know if anyone's familiar with Chase Community Giving, but I think it's almost 2 years ago now. Chase decided to, they always give money away to nonprofits, and they said, how can we do this in a way that's, that actually gets our customers involved in what they're doing? So they decided to give away $5 million to nonprofits across the US, and they created an app on their Facebook page that had a 2-step process. So first, you could nominate yourself as a nonprofit to go into the system, and then second, they actually crowdsourced from people on Facebook how the money should be given away. So people actually voted, and this was genius because not only did you get all this great presence on the Chase Community Giving page, there's 3 million people just about on there around this one program that's really huge in the cost base on Facebook. But second, they actually engaged all these nonprofit supporters on all these individual pages into this process. And last year, a great nonprofit called Invisible Children out of San Diego won. They help children who've been child soldiers in Africa. It was so successful that they're raising it to $25 million this year, which we're really happy about. So we've seen them do that. We saw Toyota gave away 100 cars in 100 days on Facebook. Once again, 2 steps. Nonprofits could actually nominate themselves, and then they had 5 a day. You could actually vote on who would get the car. And I think you didn't even have to like the Toyota page to do that, but I think their page likes went up almost 50% during that time, because they were showing their customers and getting them involved in how they did philanthropy. And it created a whole different atmosphere around what they're doing, as opposed to just announcing that. So, which is interesting. I mean, that kind of brings a follow-up question on my end. From a nonprofit perspective, does your ask of your corporate sponsors change? Is there a social ask that you bring when you're doing these kind of things?
Yeah, absolutely. So this school year, if we hit our goals, we'll see about $40 million given to classroom projects on our site, funding about 80,000 projects in low-income communities. And as much as 60% of those dollars will come from a corporate cause marketing partner. That's not to say that the corporate partner is fully funding projects on our site and not involving consumers. We actually use institutional dollars to drive citizen philanthropy. I'll give you one example, and it will be a great excuse to mention another Facebook Connect integration. PricewaterhouseCoopers is doing this for college recruits, for employees, for partners. Crate and Barrel gave DonorsChoose.org gift cards to hundreds of thousands of its customers. The philanthropic gift card to be spent on our site on a project of one's choice came with a cover letter, which essentially said, you've invited us to enrich your home by shopping at Crate and Barrel, so we'd like to invite you to enrich a classroom. Here is a $25 DonorsChoose gift card for you to become an education micro-philanthropist. And these very same gift cards, $25 gift cards, will be given to each of you, underwritten by our board of directors, when you go to coffee break. So as a quick aside, I really want to ask each of you to take the 3 minutes out of your day to spend this $25 gift of giving on a project that speaks to you, and put our search to the test. Do a search for your hometown, for your favorite author, for a topic that you've been thinking about. See if there's not a project matching. Right now, that the money on your gift card represents donations from our board members, like Stephen Colbert and Fred Wilson, that are sitting in the bank. And until you spend that gift card, that money is not helping children. So unless you hate children, spend that gift card. But so in any case, so Crate and Barrel gave these very same DonorsChoose gift cards to their customers. And you'll see when you spend your gift card that you'll be encouraged to tell all your friends on Facebook about the project that you picked. And the message will say something like, Charles Porch just supported microscopes for my 10th grade biology students in East Palo Alto. And there'll be a photograph of the classroom as part of the status update, so it's a really eye-catching update. If we were giving you gift cards from Crate and Barrel, that status update would say, Charles Porch just teamed up with Crate and Barrel to support the project Microscopes for my biology students in East Palo Alto. And from Crate and Barrel's perspective, they saw this charitable grant to our organization as a way to get hundreds of thousands of consumers telling millions of their friends on Facebook about how they had just teamed up with Crate and Barrel to make the world a better place in a way that was specific to them and reflective of their personality. Not simply signing up for a macro cause, but expressing one's personality and telling one's friends that Crate and Barrel enabled them to do that. So I think to a certain extent for Crate and Barrel, this charitable grant was as much a Facebook play as it was a grant. That's why they did it out of their marketing budget as opposed to their foundation budget. So that would be just one example of many of companies that use our site to engage consumers and employees in supporting classrooms. And we've even seen some companies use our API to essentially white label and reinvent DonorsChoose.org inside of their brand and inside of their site.
So one thing, just to build on that, I know we're running low on time, but when we think about Facebook philosophically and where the web is today, so we've gone from the information web where you were on AOL and you would in this walled garden and you looked up information and it came back to you, to this world where you're really discovering things through your friends. I think the Crate and Barrel example speaks to that so perfectly because it gives a personal spin to helping spread your message across Facebook. And I always think about Facebook as the place where you connect with the people you know in the real world. And when someone is sharing like a great dancing cat video or something about a cause or something that means a lot to them, you're much more likely to pay attention. And that's why I think we read all these amazing stories about how someone found a kidney donation on Facebook, or they reunited with a lost loved one, what have you. So,
Charles, as folks are getting excited, can you tell us sort of what's next for Facebook in terms of features that we'll be able to take advantage of?
Well, I will talk about the features that are public right now, but at our recent F8 conference this year, we talked about two new things. So first is Timeline, which is a really, really great new version of the profile that is essentially going to be a beautifully laid out timeline of your entire life. And what's exciting about this?
Can you search it?
So, 1 second. So what I want to point out about causes and the timelines, it's going to change the way you can demonstrate the things you care about. So for example, with Causes, the Causes app, which allows you to raise money for a certain cause on Facebook, in the past, you would put it on your wall if you wanted to donate your birthday, for example. And then as new things came in, it would get pushed down the wall. But now it will actually be able to live at the top of your timeline as long as you want it to. So for example, you could donate your entire birthday month. And who doesn't want to celebrate their birthday for a month and actually raise money that way? The second thing that we've talked about is additions to the open graph. So basically, there are going to be new ways to share and discover on Facebook. A, there's Timeline. B, there's the new ticker, which you can see on the right side of your news feed. And then, of course, the news feed itself. And if you haven't played with these, there's things like Spotify, which helps you share the music you're listening to, or the Washington Post has a great social reader where you can share the articles you're reading with your friends. So I think there's going to be a lot more interesting integration between people's websites and what they're sharing on Facebook through ticker, through newsfeed, what have you. And then the search question, to be honest, I do not know, but I'm happy to. Okay, feature request. I'll take it right back to the office after this, promise. So I know we're wrapping up. Do we have time for one more question or a question from the audience? Make this a little interactive outside of search or feature requests? No.
What's next for DonorsChoose?
Oh, thanks for asking. The question was, what's next for DonorsChoose.org? To keep it in line with social media, a few months ago, we opened up all our data. So that refers to all the information attached to 300,000 classroom projects posted by 200,000 teachers. And the information covers everything from whether the teacher is a Teach for America core member to is the school a charter school? If it is it a KIPP school? The essay that the teacher has written, which natural language tools can mine for recurring themes and what's on teachers' minds. Every item in the teacher's shopping cart, the book title, the vendor we bought it from, the unit cost, the museum address for the field trip. It's a mountain of information attached to each of 300,000 projects. And we've used that as a pretext for better promoting our API and encouraging not just major brands, but garage web developers to build apps that engage the public in public schools using our API. We've also used it to encourage data crunchers to make discoveries that could change statewide school budgets, or discoveries that could change what schools of education are teaching when they train teachers. As one example, I noticed anecdotally, almost like a meme of middle school math teachers who use our site to request cooking equipment, because they've concluded that when you get students to do a recipe and you're adding up fractions and then you get an outcome, and if you double the ingredients, you get double the outcome, and now after you eat the outcome, you've got a sensory experience associated with a basic algebra formula. They've concluded that this is just an incredibly effective way to get kids hooked on math. And so you'll see all these math teachers requesting cooking equipment on our site. But there is no school of education which is aware of this trend, to my knowledge. It's an example of the kinds of discoveries that people could make by tapping into the frontline expertise and imagination of classroom teachers. And sort of at a higher level, it's the idea that we could use an organization which people might knock as just about immediate relief. Our site is a place where you can get books for kids who don't have them. But that immediate relief is generating data, which we've opened up so that people can change the system using that data. So that's one of the things that we're excited about.
Thank you.